Events like the World War are fairly well known among people. It's because they're included in textbooks and talked about in history lessons. Therefore, most people would know how the war started, how it ended, and how many Allied countries were part of it. But today, I have something different for you all. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Solid History channel. I'm Paul, and I'm back with another amazing video. Today I'll be talking about a very interesting topic. We're going to talk about things that no one knows about World War I. But before I begin, take a second and hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet. Also, hit that bell button to get notified whenever I post a new video. And without further ado, let's begin. Well, we have heard about gendered toys and clothing and other stuff. But have you ever heard about gendered tanks? I think not. Well, one of the most interesting things I found out about World War I was that the tanks used in the war had been sorted out according to their gender. It's a really interesting thing, but the male tanks had head cannons attached to them. These cannons were used to fire at opponent soldiers. Similarly, the female tanks had machine guns attached to them. These were also used to attack opponents during the war. But it's quite fascinating how the men at war had time to assign genders to tanks, right? One can say that one of the few good outcomes of the World War was that the field of medicine after the course of war had advanced. For example, in accordance with the faces of the soldiers, the field of plastic surgery was initiated by Harold Gillies. The field of plastic surgery has now been established as a big industry. People spend millions of dollars on it. Some use it for aesthetic purposes, meanwhile, others have to do it out of necessity. Other than that, as many soldiers were getting injured in the course of the war, blood transfusions became a routine thing during that course. This is why, after World War I, this method was used by doctors in hospitals to treat other patients. We're not aware of how Germans were scrutinized during the World War. However, the extent of it is much deeper than we think. Apparently, historical records tell that dogs with German origins were also killed in suspicion. Other than that, in America, the German language was not taught anymore. Even though before the World War, it was one of the most highly anticipated language courses in the country. This example shows you how you can generate hate in the hearts of people by starting a war. We all should watch out for this. How we perceive people can translate into a lot of different and scary aspects. The World War is a prime example of how far hate can go. Using the word interesting sounds bizarre for World War I. Maybe it's because it was a heinous series of events that led to the death of so many people. However, one of the most bizarre things about it was that people who worked during World War I were affected by jaundice. Constantly, their skin turned yellow from the after effects of hazardous gases. We often talk about how bullets and bombs kill people in wars. However, events like the World War have much more far-reaching effects than just bullets and tanks. People were affected by many diseases like jaundice. However, another of the most brutal after effects was how soldiers were affected by PTSD. They used to get nightmares and panic attacks due to what they had witnessed during the war. Another interesting yet scary aspect of the World War is that there was such massive explosions that they could be heard in faraway lands. One such explosion happened when some workers were digging up mines in France. There were explosions that could be heard in London. This states how grave things were during that time. So much so that people in other countries were hearing explosions from France. When we talk about World War I, we often ignore the fact that many other nationalities also served in the war and fought against other nations. For example, in America, Native Americans and African Americans both fought the war. According to a report, almost 200,000 African Americans were part of the war. However, one of the most bizarre facts about it is that they weren't granted American citizenship for as long as 1924, nor did they get enough credit for this. When we picture war, we think about the people who fought during these wars. All we can think about is men who are at least in their late 20s. However, many people don't know this, but during World War I, there was a shortage of soldiers. Hence, many people faked their age to join the forces. According to reports, one of the youngest soldiers who fought during the World War was only 12 years old. One can only imagine how that kid must have felt after the war was over. Well, we just talked about how men fought the war during World War I, but after the World War was over and most of the men died during the course of the war, women were forced to join the workforce of the country, mostly out of necessity. Just so you know, the condition before World War I was different, as women were mostly found in their homes. Therefore, the World War led women to work in society. Usually, when wars are fought between two countries, they come forth all prepared. But in the events of World War I, everything was done out of desperation. You'll be surprised to know that according to several historical records, the British soldiers that fought the World War used cloth caps for protection. One can only imagine the type of protection a cloth cap can provide you from tanks and bullets. Ambulances are common these days. You could see them parked outside hospitals, workplaces, or schools. However, they were used for the first time during World War I. Many people who could not join the war as soldiers volunteered to become drivers for these ambulances. One of the most interesting things about it is that Walt Disney himself also volunteered to become a driver for one of the ambulances that would run during the World War. Whenever people think about these processes during the war, all they can think about is damaged infrastructure and injured soldiers. However, the aftermath of war is much more far-reaching than this. Whenever countries are torn apart by war, the workforce is forced to sit at home and factories are shut down. Other than that, the agricultural lands are destroyed. Hence, the country is torn by food shortages. The same happened in World War I. And as a result, people were banned from throwing food away. Not just that, there was even a ban on feeding pigeons with rice. All of this was done to make sure that more and more food was being saved for humans, as there was already a shortage of food supplies due to the war. During World War I, soldiers were recruited from a number of different social class backgrounds. Hence, it was clear to the Army that they had to do something about the uniforms. Consequently, a subsidy was introduced for soldiers so that they were able to buy uniforms without any struggle. It was a nice gesture, considering how the government struggled to make ends meet during the war. However, it doesn't take away from the fact that the soldiers suffered so much during the course of the war. Many soldiers were then diagnosed with PTSD and other diseases as a result of the ongoing war. Did you enjoy this video? What do you think about these facts? Let me know in the comments below. Also, check out my channel for more amazing videos. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that bell button to get notified about the latest video. I'll be back with more amazing content soon. Thanks for watching the video. Goodbye.